Welcome to the Rebellious Nerd Podcast, Episode 2. Today's guest is many things. He is a meditator, an American Ninja Warrior, a world-class rock climber, and a whole lot more. He is joining me today, Mr. Issac Caldiero, for a little bit of time to share with us maybe some of his rock climbing secrets or his American Ninja Warrior experiences, and hopefully we're going to have a very good time. Mr. Issac, are you ready to join me in my rebellion against mediocrity?
I'm ready to rock and roll, Steve. Let's do it.
Sweet, let's do it. Well, as a dork of epic proportions, I often leave things out and introduce people. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are?
I mean, you basically nailed it on the head, but for the most part, I'm a native of Utah, specifically Orem, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City. I was born and raised there and just grew up next to the mountains and the outdoors and developed a passion for the outdoors from a really young age, thanks to the Boy Scouts of America.
Oh, and, you're a Boy Scout, huh?
Yeah, well, I was, when I was younger, obviously. I almost got my Eagle Scout, but then I actually really got dedicated and passionate about rock climbing. Everything else just left my life, you know what I mean? And from that point on, age 15, I was completely consumed by rock climbing, and by the age of 17, I had a couple sponsors and tested out of high school and just hit the road and started traveling, like all over the country. And then over the years, eventually that led me to, more sponsors and bigger travels and going to Europe and all over the world, Turkey and Thailand and Canada and just all over the place to go and develop rock climbs and to kind of just express my talent on the rock.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know rock climbing was that big of a sport. I know they had sponsorships and all that. I'm pretty unfamiliar with the rock climbing world.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely growing, and just in the last, since I began climbing till now, it's like, quadrupled, the amount of sponsorship and the amount of opportunity for younger climbers now is like times 1,000 from when it was, for me when I was a younger climber. So it's definitely progressing, which is good for everybody.
It's probably because you look like Jesus. You just blessed the sport. That's my guess.
Maybe. Yeah, I brought in some good spirit.
Absolutely. So before we get into the meat of this interview, I like to take people through a preparation of mindset to get everyone in the right frame to, well, basically say, screw you, normal, let's go be better. So the first question, tell me something you believe is true that very few people agree with you on.
That very few people agree with me on. Trying to think of something that's not going to offend everybody.
Hey, you know what? I'm hard to offend.
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. Kind of stumped me for a second there.
Okay, we'll come back to
lots of different ideas, but
okay.
I guess something that I really believe in is that the world is overpopulated.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely numerically true.
Yeah, and some people would disagree, I guess, with that, and some people would agree, but I can't really think of anything that everyone would disagree with, you know what I mean?
Right. I can dig that. Oh, sweet. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So I guess the next one. Think about the culture that you live in, either, maybe it's local, USA, the world, whatever. If you could change a habit that the culture that you're thinking of generally has, let's say you had like a magic wand and could change the American habit of watching 10 hours of television a day, if you could change that, what habit would you change?
I would definitely change everyone's bad habit of eating too much fast food. Sounds easy.
I applaud you. I agree with that completely. Okay. If you had to pick a problem, maybe not necessarily a habit, but like a problem that you see in this world that's not overpopulation, well, what problem would you change?
Like after seeing what's going on in the world these days, it seems like there's a mass problem with starvation, amongst, third world countries. So that's something that, even just on a smaller scale here, like, every day me and my girlfriend have been going out at the end of her work. She gets a lot of day-old food from the cafe she works at, and we go hand out all this delicious bagels and croissants and muffins to homeless people. And just seeing that little bit of gratification and seeing how starving these people are, and they don't even live in a third world country. So I can only imagine what it's like, in places in Africa and, in Asia and different places like that. So that's something I would try to change if I had the power.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, starvation is really weird. There's actually like a lot of food on this planet, and a lot of it just gets thrown in the trash can.
Totally.
So
Yeah, and that like
confusing.
restaurants and cafes are like notorious for doing that. So I mean, it's just like unfathomable, like how much food gets just thrown away, and it's perfectly good.
Yeah, are you from? Did you watch the? I guess what was the last finals? It was Venice. Was it Venice finals?
Yeah, just last night.
Yeah. Did you see the only finisher? I forget his name. He's a scavenger, I think they're called it or something. Like dives in
Uh,
dumpsters and gets that food.
yeah, Nicholas Coolidge. Yeah,
Yeah, he seems like a cool dude.
yeah,
Interesting
yeah.
fellow.
Yep, he seems pretty cool. I don't really know a lot of the guys from Venice yet, but he seems cool from what I've seen. He kind of has similar lifestyle as me and my girlfriend. He lives in a little van again and just kind of hangs out on that thing and plays around. He does construction, which I have a big background in construction as well. Um, so yeah, I'd like to meet him one day, and we'll see. He seems like a cool cat.
I think you'll be meeting him at the finals or in Vegas. I imagine. That's my guess. Just a
Yeah,
guess.
well, yeah, well, he's made it to the finals, but we'll have to wait till next Monday to see whether or not I made it or not.
Uh,
Dun, dun,
yeah, absolutely.
dun.
Okay, so if someone were to call you a rebel, if someone were, or if they ever done it before or not, what would you assume they were thinking that you were rebelling against?
I would assume, based off of what I personally, I guess, rebel against, and that would be just like society's norms, and society in general. Like obviously, like I'm a good citizen. Like I don't do anything bad. I don't rob, cheat, or steal, or commit any bad crime. But I'm just, I'm against like, federal regulations of people, and I feel like we should have our, more freedom of choice in general. And obviously, America is one of the most free places you can get, as far as I know. And we're still heavily regulated.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that'd probably be something that if someone was to choose, like, what does he rebel against? I would say just society and what's socially expected of me as a human being in America or on this planet. And that's something I've done from a young age. Like in my rock climbing has helped me, expand that, and it comes from me not wanting to go to school and to get an education and to get married and have kids and buy a home and just do what everyone else expects of me to do. So I've lived a totally different, like, alternate lifestyle, which I really enjoy. So I guess that would be my rebellious act.
I knew we were kindred spirits.
Right.
Absolutely, I'm very similar in that regard. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
It's very neat that you're owning your truth and deciding to do what you want to do and solving the problems you want to solve instead of just fitting in the box that most people want to just put you in.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So rewinding back to when you first started in Utah in like the outdoors, how did you first discover that you enjoyed climbing?
Well, a good friend of mine, him and his older brother were always trying to get me out to go rock climbing, but my parents were just totally not having it. They were like, "Oh, it's way too dangerous." They're total worrywarts. They're more like scholastic. They would rather me hang out and read books and watch TV and just relax. You know what I mean? But I was like a young, very active kid. And I just wanted to get out and go do stuff. Constantly. And so eventually, it just came down to me, rebelling against my parents and going out and climbing. And they had experience, and I was like a complete idiot. I knew my limitations at the time, and I knew I was in good hands. You know what I mean? So I was playing it safe, but I knew I really wanted to do this, and it just kind of grew from there. I just had such a good time, like challenging myself and going to these areas out in the mountains and being in nature. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I just couldn't deny wanting that from a young age, and here I am still, 18
Still
years
playing
later.
around in the woods, yeah.
Yep, just running around chasing rocks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. They used to call me something with the Hobbit because I like to go trail running,
Yep,
and I go barefoot sometimes, and I kind of have like hairy feet going on. So they're
nice.
like, "You're kind of like a Hobbit." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay,
just running
I see."
around.
Yeah, that's so
Nice,
neat.
man.
So I guess your parents weren't really for you going out and rock climbing, and you did it anyway, of course. But were there other people's criticisms? Like, did you face any other kind of criticism from anyone else, or just like your parents?
Totally. Yeah, I would say. I mean, at the beginning, my parents definitely criticized, but in general, a lot of my other friends who didn't rock climb, um, and I guess they didn't know, so to speak, like criticize me going rock climbing. But as I got older and older, like out of high school, and they all kind of went down the religious path of Mormonism and the path of having family and kids and a real job in college and a career, I think that's when people really started kind of more criticizing me in my decision. And they were still really nice and friendly to me, but I'm sure, like in the back of their heads, they were just like, oh, that guy's going to be a homeless bum one day. Who knows? You know what I mean? Just because, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of leaving all that stuff behind and going this totally random, obscure, unknown direction that everyone's terrified to do. But here I am still living it and doing it. And after years of doing it, and I go back and see all my friends and people that were once kind of criticizing me, now they're like, oh man, you were like living the dream. Like, I wish I could do what you're doing. And I was like, dude, you were right there, man. You had your chance, I that, because you can't just, it's really difficult for people after they've kind of established themselves in society that deep to all of a sudden just be like, oh, I don't need to pay rent and mortgage. I don't need my kid. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really difficult to do what I'm doing at that point. So kind of something that you need to start from a certain time and period of your life. You know what I mean? For the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's actually a really neat part of the brain that freaks out once you establish yourself and you need to let go of it. It's the same thing as like committing suicide as far as like the mind is concerned. It's like the same process because when we're rejected by people, we feel like we're being banished from the town to die in the woods. So when we lose that support system because we're deciding to go and be great, go and do something that's not normal. We just get this like intense fear that we're going to die and that we won't be able to go back to our normal life if we fail. And that's like it's really strange. It doesn't make any sense in modern day, but it does makes a lot of sense back in caveman days.
Yeah, like survival instinct, like kicking in, like got to fight to survive, or I can't do that because I won't survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But nowadays it's like I was saying, like people who are homeless here in America, they can survive pretty easily, like compared to other places in the world. And it's just fascinating to me, like how terrified everyone is to let go of those things. You know what I mean? But it makes sense at the same time. So.
Yeah, I read a weird fact. I can't remember if it was in a book or on the interweb. It said that India is facing a huge hunger problem, not because there's not enough food grown, but because half of the produce that's grown in India is eaten by rodents because they don't really kill very many of the animals over there.
Yeah, for probably like religious purposes as well, right? Like,
yeah. Can't go make hamburgers in India. It doesn't really work.
No.
But yeah. Okay, so when did you start to realize that you were onto something, like onto a path that you could make a living from, or have some modicum of success? When did you know?
Probably when I was about 19. I was about 19 years old, and I had just gone on a 6-month road trip to Europe to go climbing with another professional climber friend of mine. His name is David Graham, pretty well known in the climbing world. And just kind of following around his footsteps and seeing how he does and trying to like figure out how I can do that in my life. You know what I mean? So he kind of really inspired me to really push forward with it. But then at the same time, I kind of got under this double-edged sword where it's like, oh, I want to be a professional climber. I want to live on the road and just do my thing and do whatever. But then it came down to this point where, all right, now there's this whole business aspect of it. And, it comes down to that famous old saying, like, don't mix business with pleasure. And my pleasure is to go rock climbing. But in order for me to do it how I really want to do it, I would need to have this whole business savvy side of me, which I saw in my friend and how he dealt with it, and just how it treated him. And in the end, I kind of chose to kind of keep my involvement on the business end of it somewhat limited, to a point where it could still help me out, but I wasn't totally like indulged into it to where I was just this little monkey running around for all these companies, like doing what I'm told and not doing what I really truly want to do. You know what I mean? Like I never had to go do competitions if I didn't want to. Whereas other people, sponsors require you, like, all right, you have to go do this competition or do this or do that. It's all part of your contract, and that's why they're paying you, so to speak. That's at that point it becomes a real job, and
Yeah.
the money is really not that good. So for me, it's not that easy. It's like easy for me to decide, like, well, I don't want to compromise my, who I am and my belief, my integrity towards the sport, just so I can go make some chump change,
Yeah,
So,
integrity is pretty big. I think it needs to be bigger in most parts of our society. But
totally.
I understand completely. Like if you were, maybe a mixed martial artist, you're facing $1 million, $500,000 a year purse or something like that. Like Ronda Rousey, I think she's bringing like a $500,000 or something a year, from what I've read somewhere. A little more difficult to be like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, should I compromise my integrity or not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
scary
But
stuff. Scary stuff.
if it's for like $5,000 a year, it's kind of like, oh man, that's easy.
Right.
That's an easy decision.
Exactly. That's so cool. So, do you think your meditation practice has anything to do with your ability to maintain composure and integrity throughout all this stuff?
I really feel like it has a huge role in my success and my maintaining composure, for sure. Because, and I actually started meditating in my own way. I didn't read a book, or, I mean, my dad's kind of into, like, he studies all religions, and so he kind of like lent me a book on Buddhism, and from a young age, he kind of told me a couple things about meditation and how it's very healthy for me, and then I just kind of went off on my own when I was about in 7th grade. I would go out skateboarding with my friends, and then after skateboarding, we would go into a dark room and light candles and play some, kind of peaceful music, like sounds of nature, and we would all, like, me and like 5 other skater dudes, we would just sit there and meditate. It was kind of interesting. It was very random.
Is that
And
what they called it back then?
yeah,
Meditating?
meditating.
I love meditating. It's
Yeah,
great times.
yeah. But no, I promise there was nothing else involved. But eventually, I kind of had to stray away from that whole world because, unfortunately, in the area I grew up in, like, drugs are a huge problem, and I saw a lot. By the time I was in high school, I had almost 10 of my friends had committed suicide with overdose on OxyContin and other medicinal drug or pharmaceutical drugs. You know what I mean? So that was kind of a learning experience for me. Like, wow, like, I'm so glad I didn't go down that road. And yeah, it turned into, instead of going out and skateboarding and meditating and having fun, it all just revolved around getting high and just not doing anything. So I was like, oh man, I really want to do this, and I just kind of got turned off. But from that base stage of that basic level of meditation, I kind of kept practicing it throughout my life, and eventually it came down to a point for me where I'm kind of meditating all the time. You know what I mean? I'm in, so to speak, like right now, I'm kind of in a trance of my own, like as I speak to you. I'm in control of my thoughts. I'm in control of my breathing. And so my day-to-day life, I feel like I'm always in this, maybe not the deepest form of meditation, but in some form of it. And when I'm on the course or when I'm out rock climbing, that's when I really get to, like, hone in and focus in. And yeah, I kind of go to a different place, and nothing else exists, and I just flow with the obstacles. I become with the obstacles, and I consciously remind myself of that. And I think that plays a huge role in keeping my composure and dominating the course.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was watching you, I noticed that you were like somewhere between a mix of like an orangutan and like a 3-year-old.
Nice.
Like, you had a lot of fun, and you were just really, I don't want to say slow, because you were faster than, a lot of people.
Totally.
But you weren't trying to go fast. You were just playing through the course, which is kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
cool way.
Everyone has a different approach to the course, and that's what's kind of cool is it's the same course that we're all trying to tackle, but it's different for everybody. The way we perceive it, and the way we understand it, and the way we process it, and in the end, like extinguish not extinguish, but like perform it. We all show ourselves differently. We all perform it differently based off of our perception of the course and what we want to do. And so some people, they want to go for the fastest time, because there's kind of some perks to doing that. You get more airtime. They just like that. You know what I mean? And it is fun to go really fast. Like, I do train outside of the competition. I train going fast, and I do enjoy it. But at the same time, you're also gonna, you're involving a lot more risk now. And if you fall on something stupid, all of a sudden you just have to keep the main goal in check, and that is to go to the Las Vegas final. That is to get to the summit of the 4th stage, Mount Midoriyama. That's my main goal. So at the end of the day, I'm not worried about going too fast. I'm just worried about taking my time, having fun, but obviously not going too slow, because you're not allowed to go too slow as well.
Absolutely.
They kind of keep pushing you, and and that's where it's kind of a funny thing. But I don't know, we don't need to talk too much about it. But yeah, they really don't want you going too slow, the producers, because they have a show to put on. It makes sense, and they want to keep the ball rolling. So
we have 2 hours of airtime. We got to condense all this. Don't take a half hour by yourself on the course.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, some people get out there and they're just milking every little rest, stage in between each obstacle, the platform, just hanging out, waving to the crowd. I mean, whatever floats your boat, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, it's fun to just, I just go with the flow. I mean, whatever I'm feeling in that moment. I don't really plan ahead of time, like some of the stunts or some of the showboating that I do, whatever you want to call it, throughout. It's not anything I pre-thought out. Just in that moment, all of a sudden I just feel like doing it, and it just happens and it works out. And yeah, in the end, I hope I don't look like too much of a chauvinistic person, but I'm just there to have fun, and I'm smiling and having a good time. So.
Now, your smile is authentic. There's a smile of, hey, I'm in front of an audience. Look at me. And then there's a smile of, hey, this is great. I like it.
Yeah. Cool, man. Thank you.
It's just, my perception, but, I'm a big dork. I miss things all the time. But well, that's neat. So when you're going through all this and you're doing, all the grip stuff, because I'm assuming that's probably where, is that where most of the effort is within the hands for this competition?
In the upper body obstacles, for sure. Yeah, it all comes down to grip, for the most part, as far as not pumping out and losing your or getting too fatigued and losing your level of endurance. If you kind of look at it as like a gas tank, like you only have so much gas until you hit red, and once you hit red, you're done. Like, there's no turning back, there's no refilling. So it's really all about conserving every little bit of that gas to make sure you're going to have enough to finish the end, and that's where people kind of lose it, and they overgrip things, whether it's cold or they're nervous or they're tired. There's all these other emotions that can affect the way you perform and the way you control that level of your gas tank, and that's where it's just as much of a mental game at that point as it is a physical game. And that's where I feel like a lot of people fail, is because of their mental game. There's really, really talented, strong athletes, but when they get out on that course, all of a sudden they psych themselves out. Their mind just goes all haywire. They get frantic, and they're trying really hard to stay focused, but they're so beyond that point at that time that they're just on a downward spiral. I can pick that up watching people very, very quickly. And I try to, when people come and talk to me, before the actual obstacles, I try to give them as much information about that as I can, because I don't go tell them, but if they ask me, I tell them.
Don't forget to breathe, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it is, like, it seems so simple, but when you're in that moment, it's really difficult to remember all those things, and that's where I kind of fall back on a lot of my rock climbing skills, is because some of the stuff I specialize in rock climbing involves my own life, being in my own hands. I do a lot of free soloing, anywhere from 50 feet to a couple thousand feet off the ground, and so I really got to maintain composure, whether conditions change. It could start raining, there could be a bird or a bug that's attacked. I'm in a position where I can't all of a sudden just be frantic and freak out and lose myself, because I don't want to die.
What is it, like anything more than 50 feet in the air? It's like the LD 50 for a fall. Like anything under 50 feet, you're just going to hit terminal velocity and you're toast.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, at that point, it's all the same. Like 50 feet, 2,000 feet, you're going to hit hard, and your body's not going to be psyched. So you're in no fall zone. And I take that approach on the course. It's the same thing for me. You kind of have one shot, one kill, and you can't hit the water. You cannot fall. The only thing you really have more than one shot is the warp wall, but whatever. That's not too big of a deal, to try to get it done through 3 tries, especially if you practiced it. But in general, that's my overall mentality as I'm going through the course, is maintaining that composure and, one shot, one kill. There is no falling. There is no water below me. There is nothing, just me and the obstacles and excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd be a fun guy to meditate with. I don't know if you've experienced like multi-person meditations and the weird dynamics that just seem to happen when that happens.
Yeah, I
But I
mean,
feel
other from when I was a younger kid, I really haven't experimented a whole lot
uh,
with like multi-group meditation. I kind of just take it into my own path, and I kind of do it more of just like how how I'm out rock climbing. It's like a very personal kind of solo endeavor. You know what I mean? But I'm
right.
all ears. Or I'm game for anything.
Yeah, meditation with a group of people is really strange. It feels like, how you say you're one with the course, I guess. You kind of feel the same, like the collective unconscious or whatever you want to call it. Um, you kind of
Cool.
feel that a little bit when you're meditating with multiple people at the same time, and it's kind of creepy at the same time as it's really amazing that there's,
Yeah.
I think, something beyond just us being complex meat machines.
Totally. No, that's very interesting. It makes sense, like especially that if that's your intention, is to like for us to sit down and to coexist with each other and kind of cross dissolve this consciousness that we have together through meditation. So.
Yeah. So when you start training, when you do your grip strength training, like, are you working for going as light as you can on the obstacles without falling off, or are you trying to do like pure power? Do you do like little captains of crush grip strength things, or do you just kind of hang on rocks?
So yeah, I mean that all revolves around my endurance training that I get from rock climbing. It's how that same method I was telling you about, that same theory of the gas tank, that same analogy. So I take that same approach onto the course where if you're just powering through everything and giving everything 100%, there's no physical way you're gonna keep that gas tank full. You're gonna burn out twice as fast. And that's where people make big mistakes. Is they're plenty strong, but they overgrip everything right from the start, and they don't control their breathing, and a lot of it stems from the breathing. If you can control your breath, you control your heart rate, you can control your blood flow, you can control the amount of grip or the pump factor that gets into your grip, and if you can really focus on only having to hold on just hard enough to hang in there, then you're going to be able to conserve that energy and keep going. And maybe that's where a lot of my flow comes from. Is I'm not straining through anything. I'm just kind of cruising through. But at any moment in time, I have the ability to go to 100% and clench up if I needed to. If something were to start to slip or something felt insecure, I can fall back to that fight or flight type of mode.
So you are kind of like an orangutan.
Totally. Yeah. Very very much so, man.
That's pretty neat. It's pretty. I can dig that. Yeah, I actually remember kind of ADHD moment. But my uncle told me a story once when he was in Vietnam. There was a cage with an orangutan in it. There's $1,000 if you could go like 30 minutes or 30 seconds in the cage with orangutan, or maybe it was 60 seconds or something like that, which is a lot of money back in Vietnam days. And my uncle was a bad dude. He ended up being an FBI agent afterwards and chased down mafia bad guys. And he said that monkey kicked the crap out of him in like 15 seconds, and he was literally playing for bananas. He just would just get up on the sides and then just kind of like go down and just poop, and he would have been toast if the Vietnamese guys didn't pull him on out. Yeah, those monkeys they play. And they just strong.
They just have extreme amounts of like above human strength. Really, their abilities are just above and beyond. They can hang on their arms all day long. It's in their genetics. I guess we're more designed to walk, right, or to run.
Born to run.
Our physical aspect is based off that, versus a monkey. They're born to hang.
That's cool.
And so I guess that's a lot of what I like to do too, with nature, is to mimic animals. And so I guess, so to speak, on the course, I'm mimicking monkeys. And I've always actually had a big fascination with gorillas, big silverback gorillas. Like I remember when I was a child, my dad introduced me to a movie called Gorillas in the Mist, which is based on a true story about these, the rainforest. It's all national forest now in, I believe it's in Rwanda, and it's this huge protected national forest with the largest population of silverback gorillas, and this specific species of gorilla, because they're in danger because of all the poachers and all that stuff. But anyways, this movie is from back in the 80s, and it's based on a real scientist who dedicated her life. She divorced her husband. She left everything to go be with these gorillas and help protect them. And she ended up dying with the gorillas, like protecting them. So it was a really heartwarming story. and I just loved watching the gorillas and watching how they move. And from a young age, I would mimic that and pretend I was a gorilla. You know, like at school and recess, I would like people would run across the soccer field, and I would drop down on all fours and like pretend I was a monkey just for fun. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, I just kind of dig on animals and mimicking certain things, and I also do a lot of whistling. I like to whistle and mimic birds and birds of nature. And at one point, my family had a pet cockatiel, and I would sit there and jam with him. His name was Roger. We would just sit there and whistle and kind of groove on each other's whistling skills, and yeah, it's fun.
Well, I can dig that, absolutely. Yeah. I strangely enough, I do that too sometimes. Like when I'm in the woods and like I'll hear like something like a mockingbird or one of the other birds, I'll try to like get it to start having a conversation, and so I'll try to mimic it a little bit, and then it'll go back and forth with some bird, and I'm like, cool bird.
Yeah.
Digging
just digging on each other and hearing each other and being like, whoa, what's that? That's not how that's supposed to sound, but it sounds cool. So I'll, reverberate the sound and talk back and forth,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think humans are good at running long distances, eating all the food that we can possibly get, kind of like a Labrador, and then having communications with everything. I mean, I think we're the only animal that like has pets, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's weird.
Yeah, that
pets.
is weird. Yeah, like why do we have that need to nurture things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we like made friends with wolves. Like, out of all the animals that we could make friends with, we made friends with like the guys with the sharp teeth that like to eat us. How did that work?
Exactly, right? Yeah, or rattlesnakes, or all sorts of very, very dangerous species that do not like us.
Right, it's confusing.
Sure.
I don't know how that works, but you know what? I'm digging it. I'm enjoying life. But so when you're going through any course or training or rock climbing, what part of your hands get tired first? Just out of curiosity.
It mostly stems from your forearm.
Oh, your forearms.
Yep. When you really, really start to feel that initial pump going on, your forearms just start swelling up and filling with blood, and they just get rock hard, and you just can't close. And then you start to feel your hands not being able to close down, and that's where you start to lose your grip, so to speak, and it just goes downhill from there, and like that's where if you can really control your breathing, you can kind of somewhat stop that from happening, like at one point it's inevitable no matter how long you hang on, you know what I mean? Like if we had a hanging contest and let's say you beat me in a hanging contest, but I was like, all right, dude, keep hanging in there. You obviously beat me. Eventually you're going to pump out too, it's just...
Which I would toast you in a hanging contest.
Yeah, I'm sure you would, man. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So I know a neat trick that maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. I'm not sure. I'm a big fan of serving humans whenever I can. I fell into contact with, I don't even know if contact is even the right word. I took his like online course, but I'm talking to his like staff and kids and stuff. A guy named Wim Hof. Ever heard of him?
Nope.
He is
Wim Hof.
WIM space HOF. He's a Dutch dude.
Okay.
Wim Hof. And they call him the Iceman. It's the dude is like creepy. You are to grip as he is to dipping himself in ice water.
Okay.
So
cool.
This dude has a couple world records. He ran an entire marathon in the polar circle wearing nothing but gym shorts and sandals.
Cool.
And then climbed Everest in the same outfit. And then yeah.
I think I saw someone like him or maybe him on the Stan Lee Superhuman show. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Oh yeah, dude, I love that show.
Yeah, it's a good show. They had some dude up in, I want to say it was in one of the Scandinavian countries. But yeah, he ran like an entire marathon on ice in his bare feet, I think, or in flip-flops or something crazy like that,
Yeah, that was Wim Hof.
And then the whole routine. They go through and like they test his levels, and they're like, wow, you actually do have superhuman skills to like survive the cold.
Right.
Unlike other humans.
Yeah, so he's teaching other people how to do the same thing, and it's actually really easy to do. And the benefits of what he does is not just, a cool parlor trick. He actually is able to control his immune function. He went to University of Rotterdam medical school in, I guess, the Netherlands or something, and they injected the dude full of endotoxin because he's like, look, you can't make me sick.
Oh,
and
wow.
so like, you're stupid, Wim Hof. We're going to shoot you up full of this poison and see what happens. Turned out he didn't get sick. And typically what happens when you get injected with endotoxin, which is a dead bacteria, you start puking, shivering, and have diarrhea for like 3 to 12
Oh,
hours.
wow. It's
And this
horrible.
dude's like, nothing. Sorry. And they're
Wow.
like, you're a freak of nature. So they did another test, took 10 people, taught him the same stuff. There's only like 6 to 8 weeks of training, and they shot them all full of endotoxin. Not a single one of them got sick. And the other 10, like control group, just it was fever and really bad for them for the day. It was a very bad day
Wow.
for them. And another thing, the interesting thing that may help you out is within the breathing technique that he does. It clears out CO2 and lactic acid, and you're controlling your peripheral circulatory systems using breathing and your mind. And I have a feeling that clearing out that lactic acid buildup in your forearms would probably give you a benefit, I'd imagine.
Oh, totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole ultimate goal, you know.
Yeah, whenever we stop broadcasting, I'll show you what's going on or tell you the breathing technique, because we're coming up closer to the end. But yeah, whenever we're done, I'll show you the breathing technique, because it's a little weird looking to do on a camera.
It's all good.
Yeah. Well, sweet.
Cool.
Okay, so now I only have a couple questions left before we wrap it all up. What does your daily schedule look like?
It kind of differs, you know, throughout the year, because I work seasonally. Because obviously, like, rock climbing doesn't pay the bills. And sponsors, you know, they can help me travel and do stuff like that. But, you know, so throughout the summers, I've done a lot of construction work, building houses, and kind of learning that trade, as well as working in Zion National Park, taking people out rock climbing and canyoneering, seeing if I can scare them, you know, put them on the edge of a 200-foot cliff, and you know, have them have a good experience of a lifetime, you know.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, so yeah, I just kind of have all sorts of random odd jobs. So during the summertime, my day-to-day life is going to be very different than after that. But so basically, my day-to-day life is going to be somewhat similar to anyone else. While I'm working, you know, I wake up and, you know, eat breakfast, drink some tea, and just go to work, you know, come back. I usually don't eat a lot of food during the day. I just kind of nibble on things. And then at the end of the day, you know, have a nice big meal. I'm not super specific about my diet. During ninja training times, I get a little bit more picky. But mostly just breakfast and lunch. And then, you know, I like to drink lots of water, stay hydrated as much as possible.
Cheers.
Nice, dude.
Absolutely.
But once it's climbing time, my schedule definitely changes to where instead of going to work, now I'm waking up and starting my day revolved around going rock climbing, and it just depends on where I'm at, you know. Everywhere is totally different. Sometimes I get to wake up and go right outside my RV, and there's rocks ready to climb, or sometimes I have to drive an hour, hike 20 minutes. So, you know, there's a whole different game for everywhere I want to go. And every day is just a new adventure, a new decision, new place to go, new challenge. Try not to keep it too monotonous, you know what I mean? And yeah, just keep changing it up, man. Keep things exciting. Climb everything.
Absolutely. ADHD we are, I think. I think we're right there.
Hell yeah.
Boredom is the enemy, my friend.
Totally, man.
Yeah, so say you only had 90 days to take my crazy self and throw me on, say, the Ninja Warrior course. We'll say not just stage 1. Let's just say, you know, the longest, which is stage 3 before Mount Midoriyama is the longest, right?
Yep.
Or something like that.
That's probably the hardest.
Yeah. So you had 90 days to prepare me for that. What would you do?
Well, I would first of all start, you know, like kind of get a basic idea of your basic abilities, you know, basic stuff like how many pull-ups can you do, how many push-ups, just your overall strength, and then I'd kind of pinpoint those things and kind of act upon that, you know. But eventually it would revolve around just going and getting a base level of rock climbing experience, whether it's indoors or outdoors. Just starting out small, learning movement, learning how to get a sense for your grip. You know what I mean? Because it obviously, the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. I'm going to have a way better sense of my grip and when it's going bad and when it's at 100% versus you, just based off my experience with it. So I'll just try to, you know, delve that into your body and into your daily routine of knowing your body a little bit more. And then from there, we'd be able to move forward and actually start to push yourself and see what you can do. And yep, just keep pushing yourself, you know, and whether that's on actual ninja obstacles or just even with rock climbing, it both would be very, very beneficial for your goals towards American Ninja Warrior, I believe. So, I mean, obviously, they're both really fun, and ninja obstacles are actually really cool to train on. But for the most part, it's like something like the warped wall. A lot of it's like technique based. So once you learn the technique, something that was once very, very difficult because you didn't have the right technique, you have plenty of strength, but you don't have the right technique. But once you learn that technique, all of a sudden that obstacle becomes trivial and it's no longer an obstacle.
Yep. Left foot, right foot, left foot, jump.
Exactly. And so, that's what I try to do with all my training, and I'll try to do that with you, is to make that more just a natural ability of yours if you don't already have it, and just kind of build on that and make it so no matter what you encounter, because you don't know, they don't tell us ahead of time like, oh, you're going to have this obstacle, you're going to have this, so you just have to be ready for everything and anything, and so that's what makes the best ninja, whoever's ready for everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like there should be some kind of like component of, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. So you're like,
Totally.
Here, Steve, push you off this cliff. Hang on.
Yeah. That'd be pretty funny.
Hey, that's not very nice.
Yeah. No, the wrench.
Yeah, your dodge this wrench on top of the cliff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh yeah, okay, so cool. So say in general, not just necessarily, as it relates to success in climbing or success in Ninja Warrior, obstacle racing, whatever. What 3 habits do you think contribute the most to anyone, I guess, their wellness or personal success, however they define it?
I definitely feel like breathing is one habit. Obviously we all breathe, so to speak, but I feel like we're not always conscious of our breathing. There's a lot of things we can do with our breath, like how you were telling me. That guy is able to fight sickness by his breath and meditation and learning, and I feel like breath is huge, that's how we live, that's where all life comes from, is our breath, and so yeah, that'd be number 1. Number 2, I guess, is just being happy, like no matter what you're doing in life, be happy with it, like make that a habit of being psyched and being happy about whatever it is you're doing, and passionate.
I can dig it.
And then number 3, I guess a good habit would be and it's kind of similar to the number 2 habit, was just to not take life too seriously. So.
Yeah, I can dig that. So
Yeah.
Second to last question would be, if you were me, what question would you ask you?
If you were me, I would ask how you did on American Ninja Warrior this year. But unfortunately, I can't reveal those things.
Yes, tell me everything that would get you sued.
Yeah.
Yeah, contracts are weird, man.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to know, and for good reason, I would want to know too. It's like very exciting, to know the unknown, So
I'm a little weird though. I'm like, meh, whatever. I don't care how you did. I want to know, how you got to even being on the show. Way more than I care about how you actually finish it.
Cool.
But I'm weird, so whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. And then, how can people help you out? Like what, you were talking with me earlier about the I just remember Porta Johns in the middle of the woods. I don't know why that sticks in my head, but yeah. What is it that you're working on that people can help contribute?
Yeah, right now that's kind of a big project, and it just comes down to raising enough money to pay for the porta potties. But I would just encourage people to go out and experience for themselves first before they actually donate to a cause. I think it's kind of silly for people to. Obviously take what you can get, but for me, if I wanted to go donate and help people in Africa, I wouldn't want to be the type of person just okay, here's my credit card, boop. Here's some money, I hope it does good. I want to go out and actually be there in person in the physical form, and see what I'm doing. I have to see things to believe it type of person. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I would just encourage everyone to do that, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is working on this Joe's Valley project. But that would be my first step towards you and everyone else, is to go see for yourself, see if it's something that is interesting enough to you to, it's a beautiful area, whether you're a rock climber or not. There's great fishing, great camping, great mountain biking, great four-wheeling, whatever you want. It's a beautiful area of the world. So. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. I'll post the website, I guess. Just email it to me, and I'll put it in the show notes and all that jazz. Well, yeah. Well,
cool.
That's it.
Sweet,
So,
man.
so thank you everyone for listening to the Rebellious Nerd podcast with me, Steve Moore, and my awesome guest, Mr. Issac Caldiero, Ninja Warrior superstar, also maybe Jesus Christ superstar, maybe in the future, who knows? And
We'll see.
and yeah, just keep on rocking it, everyone, and catch you some other time.
All right, thanks, Steve.